Hi, and thank you for joining me right here at the Toddcast. Look, have you ever believed that other people decided your future? I grew up with that thought. I struggled with it for a long time. I struggled with the shame of having learning disabilities and dyslexia and attention disorders and being in all the slow kid classes and how humiliating that was inside of my heart. And for a long time, I didn't believe that I had the choice in the direction of my life. Like I wasn't in charge until I started learning from mentors, people like Tony Robbins, who then went on to become dear friends, and people who I end up modeling myself. And what I discovered is relentless discipline and dreaming, visually dreaming of what my life was going to look like became so powerful, but then I had to take action. And that's when I chose to fight my way through my learning disabilities, take action, and develop myself into the man that I was born to become, the one that I dreamed of.
This podcast is brought to you by the Wirebuzz team. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it's because I've spent the past decade growing Wirebuzz into a digital marketing powerhouse designed to maximize clarity in complex sales processes so we can help accelerate revenue. And we do this in 3 phases. Phase 1, we transform your website to function like your best salesperson and then also incorporate persuasive on-demand sales videos. Now your entire team is aligned on messaging and they're injecting massive clarity into your prospect's head. So your site looks great, but it also has engaging content that helps your team sell on demand 24/7. The next phase, phase 2, we train your sales and marketing teams to sell remotely or in person to expand the impact of your sales team. And the third phase is we develop and run targeted ads to your prospects. Scale those ads to help you achieve more business results. Sign up for the Wirebuzz Company newsletter to learn more about effective and simple ways to improve your company messaging, attract more digital attention, and ultimately make more sales.
Today's guest had her own awakening to the same power, and she transformed herself into something incredibly powerful. And that's why I'm joined right now by Dr. Bonnie Koo, a dermatologist turned wealth coach and a master certified life coach and an author of Defining Wealth for Women. Dr. Bonnie, thanks for joining me right here on the Toddcast.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so honored.
I've been looking forward to this for some time. We have mutual friends, they rave about you. Dr. Bonnie, before we get into money and mindset, can we talk about dermatology for a moment? Like, when did you first know that that was your path? Like, what was that like for you?
So interesting. I don't know if I have a light shining on me moment, but what I can tell you is when I started medical school, not everyone knows what they want to do, but I remember from day one, I was like derm or bust. Like that's what I wanted to do. And I think it was influenced by a number of things. Like I had acne as a teenager and I had a really good friend who had psoriasis, and that's an autoimmune disease. And there's been a lot of progress over the last 20 years, crazy explosive progress in terms of treatment for that. And so one of the first ones was an injection. And so I would give her shots because she was scared to do so. And so I said, okay, I'll do it. And also just seeing the impact of skin disease, it's visible. You don't walk around and be like, "Oh, that person has diabetes or that person has, hypertension." Like, yeah, maybe depending if they have really visible signs, but for skin, it's like very visible. And until you've experienced that, you don't know what it's like to be so self-conscious or, people saying like, or not letting you in the pool. Psoriasis, patients with psoriasis have experienced that now. Medications are so good, they can be 100% clear. And it's like, you never know they had it. But I was open minded because dermatology is very hard to get into. So it would have been easier if I chose a different field.
Yeah, there could have been a
But
path to least resistance for you.
I want to do what I want to do. And if I'm older because it took longer, so be it. I'm going to be older anyway.
Yeah, we're all going to be older, right? I mean, that is the goal. And so I've got a incredible dermatology story that changed my life. I need to share
Oh,
it with
tell
you.
me.
Yeah, right at the beginning of the pandemic, my mentor Tony Robbins reached out and asked me to train each of his companies how to sell remotely. on Zoom now that all of his salespeople were quarantined at home. And I said yes to him, but I went home and I told my wife the great news and that I was going to turn down the opportunity. And she said, "What do you mean?" And what I haven't shared with you is the day before Tony called, I was diagnosed with skin cancer in my nose and a couple of spots right here in the center. And you can see the discoloration, and then right over here in the side. And I was just about to start surgery, 12 weeks. And I told my wife, I'm going to turn it down. She's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I don't want to be bandaged and be on stage." And she said, "Dude, are you telling me that you need to look like a GQ model before you can get out there and serve people? Because if so, you've got to readjust your needs in life." And so I finally said yes. But when I showed up for the Tony training, 1,500 of his employees, gauze, middle of the face, gauze side of the face where they took the skin from to reconstruct my nose.
Mhm.
And they loved me for it. Like I was so scared they were going to think I was a monster and I was disrespecting the event. But what they really did is they cheered for me. And most people don't ever take into consideration how the audience is going to respond or how people will respond when they see that you're willing to be vulnerable on their behalf. And that
Yeah.
changed my entire life. And I know later on you started to feel that there might be something even bigger meant for you beyond medicine. Talk to me about that. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, so I feel like my entrepreneur story is well, not that there's just one, but I sort of even say, like, I feel like it kind of fell in my lap, which maybe is not like the most empowering story to tell myself. The quick story is I was learning about money for myself because I knew zero. And so I just started reading about it. Someone said, read this book. I read this book and I was like, how come no one has told me this? And looking back now, like I just think it's crazy how it's just not something taught in school, among a lot of other things. And so I just started naturally sharing it with other friends, other physician colleagues. And one thing led to another. And someone said, start a blog. And then I started getting asked to speak. I met Peter Kim through that. Because it was a very small gathering of physicians at the time. And I was doing the blog, and it was fun. And when I say fun, it was fun to help people. It was fun to kind of like meet these people and just, the rapport and the camaraderie that comes with meeting people kind of doing similar things. And then I had my son, and he just turned 8. So that gives you an idea of how long it's been. And, I had pretty bad postpartum anxiety, and I just moved, and I'm a dermatologist. I'm like, what? I'm like, I don't need extra money. Like, I don't need a side gig. And, I just kind of came at this crossroads where I could just let it die and continue on with my life, or and I really couldn't decide. And actually, I tell this story a lot, but Peter Kim, I met him we were at a conference, FinCon. I don't know if you know that conference.
Sure.
Yeah, annual conference. It's like September, October. And I was telling him, like, I don't know what to do. And he said, well, you just got to decide, like, go big or go home. It doesn't matter which one you pick. Just got to decide. And I was like, but I don't know. Like, I left even more confused. But obviously, I decided to move forward. I didn't have a lightning moment. I
Yes.
just decided. And what's the worst that could happen? I'm a dermatologist.
Yeah, what is the worst thing that can happen? You get to follow what your heart's desire is.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, take me back to young Bonnie, like before coaching, before dermatology. When did you first start to discover or separate what was expected of you from what you actually wanted?
Oh, that's a great question. Being Asian, being Korean, I think most people would assume that my parents pushed me to be a physician because that is a common, immigrant story. But I've always been interested in science and biology. I mean, I'm dating myself, but I remember reading the World Encyclopedia medicine chapters over and over again. Now we have Wikipedia.
Yeah.
So I've always wanted to do something with science, medicine, or not. And my parents weirdly did not push me. In fact, I didn't start medical school until I was 27 because I worked at Morgan Stanley first. I remember when I decided to s- to go, I was pre med, but then I got a job offer I couldn't say no to. And even my mom was like, "You sure you want to do that? You're gonna have to work really hard and like, because I was making good money. I was living in New York City. I mean, life was pretty good." So, I guess you could say I always, in many ways, followed my heart's desire,
Mhm.
but I've always been kind of a strong personality. I've always been the, "Don't tell me what to do." I'm still like that.
This is interesting. So this starts to stack up pretty beautifully. You didn't match. And for listeners who don't know, that really means that she didn't get accepted in dermatology residency the first time or the second time. Is it the
Second.
second time, right? So,
Didn't get in the second time.
yeah. And that's considered career ending in medicine. But what did the second
Yep.
no do inside your mind? And when did you turn that no into fuel instead of defeat?
Yeah. I remember where I was and what I was doing the first time I found out. It's an email. And the second time I was an intern. So I was actually in the hospital working. And I remember one of the senior residents, we went into a room and closed the door and just kind of gave me some space to cry. I'm sure I cried. I don't remember exactly. And then I bought some really expensive shoes to make myself feel better. But after I had some time to process it, basically it was like, okay, well, what are my choices? Right. And at that point I was like, okay, I can apply. Actually, the thought of picking another specialty never occurred to me. Because maybe I considered it. Like people say, oh, why don't you just do internal medicine or radiology or anesthesiology? And I was like, but I don't want to do those things. And at the time, and I still think it's a thing, so the next step is either to take some time off to do research. And there are certain programs where you do that. You pretty much are guaranteed a spot as long as you don't like F up, right?
Mhm.
And you're not like a crazy person. And so I looked for those types of positions. And I remember asking a friend, actually, he lives in LA. I remember asking him, hey, because he was, I think his goal at the time was to be a, Hollywood producer or something like that. So I said, "Hey, if someone told you that you had to move to a place you don't want to live for 2 years, but then you would for sure become a Hollywood producer, would you do it?" And he said, "Absolutely." Because the first one that I considered was, I don't want to say where it is because it's not like it's a bad place, but this is when super high New York snob stuff coming in. Like I was like, I cannot live there
Of course.
for 2 years.
And today it probably sounds pretty good.
Um, but then I landed at UC Irvine in Orange County, which obviously is not a bad place to live. Although it's so interesting, right? Our perspectives change. But at the time, I didn't like living there because I really missed New York, and I had a guy there,
Yeah.
all the things. So yeah, I guess I decided, and I was like, okay, well, 2 more years. I mean, I didn't love the idea, but I decided like that's what I want to do. I couldn't imagine doing another field just because it was easier to get into.
So you were close to Irvine Meadows Amphitheater, where I went to many concerts growing up, and you're pursuing your dream now. Speaking of music, you told me Taylor Swift was someone that you admired, and not for her fame, but for her discipline in pursuing her dream. What did you discover in Taylor that you were able to apply into your own life?
It's funny. Knew of course, I knew who she was for a long time, but it wasn't until her Eras tour where I kinda paid more attention because I didn't realize she had gotten that big. Clearly, I was in a bubble, and then I just started learning more about her, and I think the things I like about her is, like, she shows that she's human. She clearly has discipline because you don't do a tour like that without the discipline. And, like, of course, I don't know exactly what's true, although she's having that documentary that's going to come out now in December about it. But, I remember reading something like, she would run on a treadmill and sing her songs. The discipline to show up and to perform. And I actually did not have the pleasure of attending her live, but, to show up and like give a show as if it's the first time, not to be like, she's always, I guess you could say, on for that. And has never given up, and I do remember because there's like 30 million Instagram clips of her, of her talking. I do remember hearing one thing when someone asked her if she couldn't do what she wanted to do or like what would she, some question like that, and you could just really tell how much she loved songwriting. And so, yeah, I admire the discipline, the perseverance, and also that she even had that desire and was okay because I've heard that, she wanted this. It's not like this just happened because she got lucky. Like she really wanted this. And so what you said earlier about like visualizing, manifesting, that's to me, she encompasses all of that.
Manifestation's been a big part in my life. I didn't even realize I was doing it, but
Mhm.
I was giving energy to a vision of what I saw myself doing that would be fun, that I was passionate about in a way where I could serve people.
Yeah.
And before I knew it, that became like every time I was in the car by myself or when I was walking, I kind of was going through stepping onto the biggest stage in the world and serving people. And it became a magnet in my life that attracted me like metal to exactly where I wanted to go. And the cool thing was that I kept energizing it. And when I finally got my moment and was asked to step on the biggest stage in the world, I had already trained myself because in all those manifestation moments, I was exercising and visualizing and polishing my craft. And you can see in Taylor Swift's work that she has the passion to do it during the downtime. And the people that are great at anything are the ones
Mhm.
that nerd out in their downtime on a topic, which puts them head and shoulders above everybody else. Maybe money isn't any different. You've often said that money isn't math, it's a mindset. Tell me about that. When did you first recognize that financial struggle wasn't about numbers, it was about self-concept?
Working with my coach, and I was working with her when I was sort of at that crossroads with whether to continue with what I do. She was certified life coach specifically because there's different types of coaches, right? So she was specifically certified in basically a form of cognitive behavioral therapy where you examine your thoughts and beliefs. Again, something that people should learn when they're younger. It's like, did you know your thoughts create your feelings? Do you know that all of your feelings are temporary? It's like very useful information, right? And so she just coaching with her about, and it wasn't specifically about money, it was about other stuff. And I was like, this is like the missing piece. And then just learning all about all the societal brainwashing that we have. Because, Tony Robbins obviously talks a lot about money and mindset as well in his way. And then also as a woman, we're socialized differently. There's different expectations. If you're a physician and a mom, you basically take care of everyone else, and the thought of wanting to be rich or even verbalizing like that's like, crass or something, right? Like people will say, "Oh, I lost 10 pounds," or "Hey, I want to lose 10 pounds." Like you think about, I don't know if guys probably don't do that, but girls will say like, "I have a goal of losing 10 pounds," like, and that's something people can share and they don't feel weird about that. You don't hear people talking about like, "Yeah, I really want to be a multimillionaire," or even saying like, and then also as a woman, we're socialized differently. There's different expectations at brunch, like, "Hey, I lost 5 pounds. Hey, I just hit $1 million of net worth." Like people don't talk
Yeah,
about that.
right. But we should, and we don't teach wealth creation as a culture, but we definitely should. And then when it happens for you, I don't know, my life just got really a lot easier because I didn't have the same pain or daily worries. So I know it changes the way that it gives you different options. And
Yeah.
it's incredible. I'm surprised. It feels like we're repulsed by it. So we don't bring it up, but it's the great differentiator in our lives and allows us to live our dreams and pursue things and employ people and improve our economy, everything. It's like,
Mhm.
incredible how it lifts up lives. Speaking of lifting up lives, you have a 7-year-old son with ADHD and something that I've struggled with my whole life. And,
And dyslexia in that.
I've got that too. Sometimes it's less Dixia, sometimes it's dyslexia. It depends on where I'm at and what my sleep cycle's like. And I understand the tension between wanting to protect and to equip him for success. How did you teach your son without over sheltering him from the struggle that builds strength? How did you implement that into him?
Oh, well, I don't know if I'm really doing that. I feel like I'm not doing a great job. It's tough. I think the hardest part is when you feel like other parents are judging you. Have you noticed that everyone's a better parent when they're not a parent? So, but just like you said about money, it gives you choices. Like having money gives us the option to pay for services that cost money and often aren't not covered by insurance. So I think finding good people, like everything we do, it's like, for like our mental health, or if it's like there's like a team. So he has like a team and it really took a long time. In fact, I really did not want to move to Tampa, but I have found really great people here. So I'm really grateful for that. Except for a psychiatrist, we stick with the one in New York. But I think doing that, and also we decided this year to pull him out of I've always been not a fan of traditional school, by the way, and
Mhm.
public and private doesn't matter. So he's technically homeschooled. He does go to his school and he goes to, I don't know if I mentioned this, but he goes to something called Acton Academy, and it was actually created by an entrepreneur in Austin. And so it's trying to bridge the gap of actually teaching some practical skills. And also, the academics take maybe 2 hours a day at his age.
Mhm.
So it's like, and the rest, and like, and they get to run a little boy with ADHD. What do they need to do? They need to be outside running around.
They need to exercise.
Everyone can benefit from that, every kid, right? So they get a lot more time for that, multiple times a day, they can go outside and run around. They don't have, like, class periods per se. A lot of it's actually independent, which I was a little worried about because a lot of ADHD kids, like, they need a lot of structure, and it sounds like he's doing really well. But yeah, like, if the teacher thinks he needs to go outside and run around, I think they literally tell them, like, "Go outside and run around for
Yeah.
a little bit, and then come back when you're ready."
Dr. Bonnie, he's 7, and you may not feel like you're leaving a big impact on him right now, but please know this was right around the time I was diagnosed. And my parents made sure that I had a therapist to meet with and a educational expert to meet with once a week and outside of the schooling, which helped me with life skills and coping mechanisms. And it all stacked up and became incredibly valuable in my early 20s when my brain really kicked on
Yeah.
and I started to take charge of my own life and stop being a victim. And I think it was the early therapy that my parents provided that allowed me to be very honest with where I was and where I wanted to go and know that I wasn't there, but I had the skills to get there. Right.
Yeah.
So you may not be seeing it now, but rest assured you're laying a really great foundation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in play therapy because that's better for the, younger kids versus, like, talk therapy, CBT, and he gets occupational therapy. They do a lot of things, but emotional regulation is definitely, part of that. I'm in a hard season right now, so
I get it, and what's great is seasons change. And for
yeah.
someone listening right now who might feel trapped maybe in a job or a role or a money ceiling, what
Mhm.
is the first small decision that they can make, like, today to be able to rebuild that muscle of choice?
Well, honestly, you said it. I said it just before, we hopped on here, is all money situations are temporary.
It's
Kinda like feelings are temporary. But yeah, all money situations are temporary. But we tend to extrapolate and catastrophize thinking what's happening now is gonna happen forever, and everyone ends up under a bridge homeless or their parents' basement.
Well, as you're saying this, I'm thinking about it. Every time I owed significant amount of money, the payoff, the money generation happened at warp speed and not in like a 5-year, 10-year plan, but like in 2 months, boom. And then, and so I always try when I'm thinking about something being expensive, how surprised I'm going to be, how quick it actually gets paid off or that money becomes available to invest or whatever. And we tend to look at things as as you mentioned, a catastrophe when the truth is it'll happen a lot faster than you expect if you just plan for it.
Well, not only that, you have to remember we're all sort of indoctrinated in that, this is how much we get paid, and it's like this regular cadence, AKA the
Right.
paycheck. And so we also think that's just what's gonna be available to us. Actually, I wanted to ask you a question if that's okay. You
Yeah.
mentioned that when you owed a lot of money, because debt, consumer debt, that's something that
Huge.
I could say plagues a lot of, I mean, people in general, but since I work with physicians and they're high income earners, so there's even like some shame in that,
Yeah.
especially when they have consumer debt. And again, I just really just try to hammer home to my clients, like, all money situations are temporary. And, if you want to get out of it, you totally can. It's not going to take 20 years to pay it off. I mean, it can, but like, it doesn't have to.
Happens at warp speed. When we paid off 10 years worth of debt from opening up our business, and we paid it off in 3 incredible months. And those 3 incredible months, revenue went through the roof. And I wrote the check on, I'll remember it forever, on the last day of February of 2020. And I still had $1 million in the bank after writing off all of the debt. And my wife and I had 2 epic weeks of life.
Hmm.
And then some wild pandemic, maybe you heard of it, swept across the swept across the world and changed everybody. As an entrepreneur, I'm like, oh, I got 2 incredible weeks. And and then you have to shut down your office and everything changes.
Yeah.
But had that not happened and I didn't pay off the debt, I wouldn't have been able to retain our employees, every single one of
Mm.
them, through the pandemic. And we didn't have to sell another, every employee knew we don't have to sell another deal for 12 months. We're all secure. And when you have a large agency, that's a gift from God when you feel responsible for all those people and you know who just signed on a new mortgage and who's
Yeah.
having a baby. And that's a terrifying entrepreneurial moment, but revenue can be generated instantly with the right
Yes.
plan, and you can pay things off and stockpile money. It's like incredible how fast it can happen. And speaking about how fast these things can happen, for people that want to follow and learn more about you, the best place is Wealthy Mom MD on Instagram. Check that out. Make sure you go to Wealthy Mom MD
Mhm.
on Instagram. You could also get a free copy of her book. And Dr. Bonnie, thank you so much for being right here on the podcast to chat with me, not only about your life and your transformation, but how you lift people up. It's been a great honor to get to spend some time with you.
Thank you so much.
Yo, that was a powerful episode. And from what we just learned, it should be obvious how you can now implement these lessons in your life to get to the next level. Now, before you bounce, I just have 3 quick thoughts. First, thank you for taking me on your incredible life journey. Second, if you receive some value from me and you want to pay it forward, it would mean the world to me if you left an honest rating and review at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. I'd be incredibly grateful. And lastly, if you share this episode, whether it be a screenshot or a photo from where you're listening, anything via Instagram stories or LinkedIn, Facebook, or any of the social media sites, just tag me and the guest. I'll repost your content and I'll reply back in the comments because I love mixing it up. In fact, I'd love to share your shout outs in my feed too. Not only are these shout outs really good for you and for me, but they also help us book more amazing guests because they'll be able to see the reach that you're helping to cultivate. This is a way for you to help contribute to the show. So thank you again for listening, and I look forward to earning a regular spot inside that ear of yours. Let's grow.